back to the channel. Today in this video I would like to bring you my top 10 sci-fi books that I have read so far. So spoilers, I haven't read loads and loads of sci-fi novels. This is very much a work in progress. This is the 10 best sci-fi novels I've read so far while I'm on my journey to reading the great sci-fi novels. So yeah, let's start with a few disclaimers. Often there are these kind of rules that we make when we make these top 10 lists. One of mine is that the sci-fi genre is a interesting genre that takes elements from other genres. In fact, it kind of inspires a lot of other genres in a way. A few books that I'm going to exclude from this list. Now, you may definitely see these as sci-fi novels. I do too, but I've already put these novels in other lists. Books such as Frozen Hell by John W. Campbell, I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, and The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. Very much sci-fi novels, but I've placed these already in my kind of favourite horror novels lists, because these are the kind of books that straddle the lines between kind of science fiction and fantasy and horror. These are all kind of sub-genres in the end, and so there's a lot of cross-pollination there. So these won't be on the list, but if you see a couple of books and you think, actually, I would prefer to have one of these novels on there instead of this, feel free to kind of swap those out at will. I recommend all three of these novels, and they would place somewhere between 10 and 5 on my list should they have appeared there. Honourable mentions, I'm only going to put one honourable mention out there. It's a book I failed to find on my shelves. I've just got too many books at the moment. I'm sure that's the same with most booktubers. And that's Flowers for Algernon. Flowers for Algernon, I would consider one of my favourite sci-fi reads. It is one of my favourite books, most likely. But yeah, unfortunately didn't quite make the top 10, but I do think it is a worthwhile read. It's a very compelling story. It's a very human story, and I think the themes in there work very well for science fiction. So let's go to number 10. And it's a very sci-fi novel, and that is The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert Heinlein. So why is this book in my top 10? I think it just has such a real science fiction feel. At the end of the day, these are people that are living on the moon. It's, you know, it deals with a kind of alternate kind of future look at revolution and what that might look like. It has, you know, all the big kind of sci-fi themes in there. It plays around with language. It plays around with artificial intelligence, which is obviously a big reoccurring theme. And it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of suspense in it. It has a good plot. It isn't the best written novel, in my opinion, which is why it's not higher up on this list. But I think it's a real science fiction novel, and it certainly kicks the list off nicely, I think. Another thing the science fiction genre is really big on and really good for is novellas and short stories. For me, the short story that I read recently that I think does what I always want from a short story, which is deliver a novel-like experience in a very small amount of pages, was Black Destroyer. I read it from this novella collection here, but I'll put a picture up on the screen for you. Yeah, it's a novel that is one of the inspirations for the movie Alien, which is one of my favorite movies. What it is it's kind of a team of astronauts, of scientists, effectively, and they're trying to pit their wills against a more advanced life form. And it is very entertaining and delivers a lot for very few pages. One kind of subgenre of science fiction that is very popular is kind of that dystopian alternate future style of genre, and I think A Clockwork Orange is a fantastic entry into that. Not the longest of books, only around 100 odd pages, but yeah, certainly very sharp, very clever, witty, lots of satire, and you know, kind of you've got a lot of commentary on kind of young people and modern society. It's really interesting stuff, compelling stuff, and I would definitely recommend it. And one book that couldn't be further from that is, and this is kind of like my modern entry for this list, it is there very much as a form of entertainment, and that is Red Rising. Now, it will not stand up alongside a lot of these other science fiction novels because it doesn't have the big sci-fi ideas, it doesn't have the depth necessarily, but what it does have is a lot of strong character, a lot of strong action. It is written to be a piece of entertainment, first and foremost, and I think it's it does a very good job. It's quite succinct at doing that, and I believe it does deliver a high quality experience for it. So there it is. At number 6 is a book very different to Red Rising, a book about lots of depth, lots of layers, lots of ideas, lots of very intricate commentary and satire, and that is The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick. A fantastic novel. It's so packed full of ideas. It's so discombobulating to the reader at times. But yeah, I feel like Philip K. Dick stuff, it should be read at schools. It should be pored over because it is the kind of thing where a lot of it will go by and get missed if you're not paying attention. But really fantastic stuff. Alternate reality stuff there. So what could be higher than The Man in the High Castle? What could be on my top 5? So these next 5 books, I just have glowing praise for these. I recommend all of these 5 books. The first is by the Strugatsky brothers. It is Roadside Picnic. This is a very different type of alien contact story. It is very kind of sarcastic in a way. It's very bleak. It's very realist. It's very visceral. It's very Russian. I think it's really fantastic. If you like alien contact stories and you want a different type of alien contact story, I think Roadside Picnic definitely delivers. Something also that's a little bit different for this list, and that is Frankenstein. You will find this on most people's top sci-fi novels. It's because it is kind of the grandfather of sci-fi in a way, and it deals with a very real sci-fi concept of man acting as God. And I think it does it in a very human way, a very easy way to, relate to and to, pore over and pull apart. It is a very intelligently written novel, and I think it belongs on all of those lists. I think if this is on your top 10 sci-fi novels list, it's for a good reason. A novel that some people may say is too high or not high enough, and number 3 is Dune. So this again is a novel you'll probably find on a lot of people's top 10 sci-fi novels list. It is a sprawling epic, really, but it is one that is delivered, through the tunnel that is Paul Atreides, and it is done expertly well in that way. It delivers really good sense of place, really good sense of scale, and loads of kind of like fantasy and mysticism in there as well, which gives you something a little bit different than what you might get from some more hard sci-fi. I think Dune is a masterpiece, and it is a very unique reading experience, so I definitely would recommend that. What 2 books could be above the likes of Frankenstein and Dune? I'm not quite sure. It depends what day you catch me on, but this could be the number 1 pick, or it could, today it's number 2, and that is 1984 by George Orwell. This is a nice Folio Society edition here, but it doesn't matter in which format you read this book because it is very profound. It doesn't need much introduction really. Big Brother is as much a part of our culture now as it ever has been. People will forever reference this book, but for me, the thing that always caught me about this book is the sense of paranoia. It's the sense of being able to relate to the protagonist, and that being able to put yourself in those shoes, and that horrible, almost that feeling like uncanny valley, like this is almost like our real life right now, but not quite, and there's something just something off about it, and the feeling permeates the text, and yeah, it's just a great book. If you haven't read it, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't read it, 1984, number 2. And the only book that kind of stands head and shoulders above these for me is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? My favourite read for a sci-fi novel so far. I feel it was enthralling. I lost my sense of place and time when I was reading it. It was otherworldly, but it was absolutely packed with theme. It was packed with ideas. I'm not always convinced that Philip K. Dick even knows what is going on in his head when he's writing these books. But it's one of those, I think, that you could just, you could tear it apart and you could pore over the text for weeks or months, and you can always get something new from it. And it delivers great characters and a great sense of place. Yeah, it's a world. It feels like a breathing world, and it's ideas get inside your head and make you think. I feel like Philip K. Dick's always keeping the reader on the back foot. He's trying to make them mess with their sense of perception and make them look at the novel from an aspect or a direction they weren't necessarily expecting. Will it stay my favourite sci-fi novel? Maybe not, because if you've seen my lists of 10 next sci-fi books I want to read, or 25 books I want to read, or next 20 sci-fi authors I want to read, they're all on the channel, and there are some huge names on those lists. There are easily another 30 or 40 top sci-fi novels I need to read, and this list will change drastically. So I will revisit this in a couple of years' time, but thanks for spending some time with me in the meantime, and I'll catch you next video.